3 days have passed, and Caesar is still fighting fiercely with Wald, but the intensity is not as good as before. The ships on both sides were damaged. If the cadres were not there to defuse the attack on the ship at any time, the ship of the Rocks pirates would have been sunk. Up to now, both of them are relying on strong physical strength to hold on. The figures of the two kept interlacing in the air, and the speed was so fast that only afterimages remained. Bang! Caesar was hit hard by Wald's black fist, and instantly fell from the air like a kite with a broken string. Blood spurted out of his mouth with a puff, and his back slammed onto the boat. Caesar. Brad stepped forward quickly, worried. Caesar, are you okay? Rocks clicked his tongue, and stood up, stepping lightly. Whitebeard's expression moved slightly. Let the ship's doctor carry him down for treatment. It's already very good to be able to persist until now. After all, the opponent is demon fruit power. Hockey is proficient in using it, and he can also use Marine 6 styles. Rocks ignored him, and walked past the panting Caesar and the vigilant Brad, looking directly at Wald standing back on the side of his own boat. Wald gasped for breath, heaved a long sigh of relief in his heart. If he continued to fight, he might lose to that kid. I didn't expect that guy to be so talented in fighting. He improved his strength in a short period of time during the battle. He wanted to finish that guy within 10 minutes. Miscalculated. Biojack sat back on his shoulders, worried. It's all right, Wald. Captain Walder. Nakan also frowned tightly, looking worried and anxious. Just a cadre on the other side's ship made the captain waste his strength like this. From this point of view, their captain will only be stronger. What do we do now? She glanced at Rocks, who was walking slowly towards the bow, with horror in her eyes. Wald was also taken aback. Observation hockey made him feel the strength of the person in front of him very clearly, and he was not at the same level as the kid just now. And there are 3 monsters on board that are stronger than the kid just now. In this case, they have no chance of winning at all. Since you're here, leave all the treasures on board. Rocks slowly evoked an evil smile, bloodthirsty looming in his eyes, and greed followed. The pirate behind Rocks immediately shouted excitedly. Shout loudly. The momentum completely overwhelmed the Wald pirates. Although in the battle just now, the opponent was the winner. Wald gritted his teeth secretly. How can it be repaired? He glanced at Biojack, then at Nakan, Sebastian, Gyrom and others behind his gaze. I wanted to continue fighting in my heart, but reality seemed not to allow it. This pirate group is not easy to mess with. Go ahead and dream, our treasure will not be given to you. After 3 days of fighting, his body was extremely exhausted, and he had already exerted all his strength. They must escape. After giving Biojack a look, the big brother immediately accepted his intentions. Rocks sneered, his brows and eyes narrowed, and an invisible momentum swept away in an instant. Terrifying as hell. The crew behind him only felt a tight breath coming, and the pirates of Wald pirates fainted to the ground one after another. There was a click. The sides of the ship began to crack. Wald's pupils narrowed slightly, and his eyes were full of vigilance towards Rocks. Meanwhile, their ship was rocking slowly. Rocks snorted coldly, eyes full of disdain. Want to escape? Sudden. Double, 100 times the speed of the ship. With a bang, the hull of the ship flashed past. Suddenly disappeared in front of the eyes. The Rocks pirates all opened their mouths in surprise. Is this all right? Looking around, there is only a black dot far away on the east side. The next moment, the black dots disappeared, calm was restored on the sea. After a night of rest, Caesar woke up feeling much better. Caesar, you're finally awake. Brad leaned forward excitedly. It's all right. Caesar covered his stomach, shook his head and said, it's okay, I'm just hungry. Plus the whole body is sore. Thinking of yesterday's ending, he frowned. Did he lose in the end? Caesar pursed his lips tightly, his eyes deep. Although lost, it is not without gains. He looked down at his fist, which was covered with a rich layer of armament hockey. After this battle, his armament hockey seems to be much tougher. After the World Destroyer World War, Caesar became more interested in fighting against the strong. From time to time, ask Whitebeard about the practice of hockey or taijutsu. They often challenge Golden Lion, Whitebeard or Charlotte Linlin and others. Whitebeard wields a naginata, and the shock fruit ability starts to shatter the air. There was a clicking sound, and the hull began to shake nonstop. The members of the Rocks pirates quickly grabbed the side of the ship. Here it goes again. Is that guy Caesar finished? It's fine to find someone to fight every day, but he is looking for the strong man on the ship. If this continues, our ship will fall apart sooner or later. With a clang, the long sword in his hand collided with Whitebeard's naginata. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color, and the black auras swept across the sky. Bang bang bang. The onlookers all rolled their eyes and fainted. Charlotte Linlin on the side was not affected at all, holding the pastry and eating happily. Well, Caesar, you're making progress really fast. Golden Lion Shaki watched the battle between the two, becoming more and more surprised. He found that Caesar's progress was very obvious, especially after challenging Wald. Armament Hockey was more comfortable and faster to use. Conqueror's Hockey Entanglement also seems to have touched the threshold. When fighting Newgate, the long knife occasionally entangled a little Conqueror's Hockey. The two separated quickly, and the red and black, suffocating breath dissipated immediately. The aftermath of the battle was still there. The hull of the ship was shaking, and the waves on the sea surface kept rolling. Clang clang clang. After not stopping for a long time, the two continued to wrestle together again. Caesar's speed became faster and faster, and the naked eye could not catch his figure at all. Although Whitebeard's body is tall, his speed is not slower than Caesar's. Fighting and fighting, both of them discarded their weapons and switched to pure hand-to-hand communication. Whitebeard's fist was surrounded by a round white halo. He was shocked immediately, remembering that he had seen the use of this ability in anime. That can directly kill a person. He dodged back quickly. Whitebeard laughed a few times. Are you scared? As soon as the words fell, the next second, Whitebeard appeared behind Caesar and punched Caesar on the back of the head. Caesar's complexion changed, and the black and tough armed color immediately pervaded, resisting firmly. There was a violent shock, and then a feeling of numbness and dizziness came from the back of his head, but Caesar was greatly relieved. At that moment just now, he really felt like he was dying. After the fight with Whitebeard, he clearly felt more proficient with his Conqueror's Hockey, and his Armament Hockey was also more powerful. 2 days after the battle with Whitebeard, Caesar found the Golden Lion again. In order not to hurt the ship, the two of them were more careful in their movements, for fear of being cut off by the ship. In addition to fighting against the powerful people on board, Caesar is practicing day and night. In the battle with Wald, he lost in physical strength in the end. If he could hold on for a little longer. It may be hard to say who will lose. 11,181, 11,182. Caesar's voice came from the training room. Caesar was standing upside down, with a big barbell on his feet, which seemed to weigh at least 12 tons. The sweat on the head dripped to the ground, wet the floor. Clenching his teeth, his face was flushed, and the arm supported by one hand was shaking all the time, but Caesar didn't think about giving up, but continued to push up and down with difficulty. Severe gasps filled the training room. When it was time to eat, Caesar took a shower, changed his clothes and went to the restaurant. We can finally go back to our paradise, but we haven't been back for a long time. That's right, I'm still kind on Hive Island, I miss you so much. Bah. You're thinking of the beauties on the island, right? Caesar heard several people not far away talking about the base camp. Are you going to the base camp of the Rocks Pirates, Hive Island? Caesar began to look forward to it. The ship sailed towards the Hive Island, and the weather was calm for several days. Today is also sunny and sunny. Suddenly, the pirate on the watchtower shouted in panic. Marine, it's Marine. Caesar was taken aback, and when he looked around, he saw 3 Marine ships. Marine's seagull logo is painted on the sail, and the green hull with dark green Madara stripes is very conspicuous. Rock stood up quickly. Is it chasing you? Whitebeard and the others were all ready to move, and they all felt that the warship was already their old opponent. Seeing that Caesar was a little puzzled, Whitebeard, who had a good impression of Caesar, explained, it's the Marine who has been hunting down our pirate group. Caesar was taken aback, and lay down on the side of the ship, looking curiously at the approaching Marine. The people on the Marine ship gradually revealed their true colors. After seeing the faces of the leaders, his pupils shrank sharply. 4 people stood side by side on the deck of the ship in the middle. He was wearing an all-color Marine uniform coat with the word, Justice, written on the back. The person on the left is wearing a blue suit shirt and has long dark blue hair. He looks at the pirates seriously, with the intellectual elegance of a woman, and the majesty of being a Marine Vice Admiral. There is no doubt that she is Marine Vice Admiral Crane. Looking further to the right, the man has an afro head and is frowning in their direction. Caesar's pupil quakes. That's Sengoku when he was young. The afro is so conspicuous that it's impossible not to recognize it. Followed by Garp with black hair, developed chest, a black beard, and a very standard inverted triangle figure. He secretly marveled for 2 seconds. Garp, who is very popular in One Piece, looked like this when he was middle-aged. There is also a faint aura that is different from Conqueror's haki, which is worthy of Garp the Fist. In addition, there is another person with a tall body, wearing sunglasses and short purple hair. Looking at the flag of the Rocks Pirates, deep disgust appeared in his eyes. This is the Black Arm Zephyr, Caesar guessed positively. Rocks stepped onto the deck and snorted coldly. Did you even catch up here? Garp, Sengoku, Zephyr, and Crane. Facing such a powerful enemy, Rocks didn't have the slightest sense of awe, but his arrogance became more and more vivid. In the face of his ambition to become the king of the world, nothing is worth mentioning. Garp and Sengoku exchanged glances, and said first, Rocks, don't try to escape this time. As he spoke, Garp clenched his fists, and the muscles under the black suit bulged. Stake the name of Vice Admiral. Garp has a strong sense of oppression. Obviously he is a person without any demon fruit power, but not everyone can avoid his fists. Sengoku also stepped forward to support his friend Garp with action. Rocks immediately burst out laughing, full of disdain and arrogance. You guys are thinking too well. Are you sure you can beat Laozi's pirates? As the two talked, Garp spotted Caesar standing behind Rocks with the cadres. A fresh face? He was a little dazed, obviously aware of Caesar's strength. To his surprise, the other party looked like he should be in his teens. Why did you get on the Rocks pirate ship at a young age? Garp has a keen eye for people, and he found that Caesar's eyes did not have the cruelty and bloodthirsty in the eyes of most of the Rocks pirates. That kid should not be an evil guy like Rocks. When he thought of this, his heart moved slightly. Caesar caught Garp's gaze and looked over. Who is this new friend? Rocks looked at Caesar, and immediately smiled even more arrogantly. Alexander Caesar, the new crew member of the Rocks pirates. Sengoku and the others looked at Caesar, with guard and vigilance in their eyes. Caesar looked calm. Looking at the Marine Vice Admirals, his momentum was not at all inferior. Feeling his strength, Sengoku immediately frowned. The Rocks pirates themselves are not easy to deal with, and now there is another fierce general, and the combat power has once again improved. Garp said slowly, so it's called Caesar. Hey, are you interested in joining Marine? Sengoku, Zephyr, and Hichi looked at him in a daze, as if they were saying, what nonsense are you talking about? Sengoku pouted, not knowing what to say about his friend's offline behavior. Although the other party doesn't look like a cruel and bloodthirsty guy like Rocks, but there is an ambition not to lose to Rocks hidden in his eyes, and he is not a good person to get along with at first glance. Caesar froze for a moment. He didn't expect Garp to say such a word suddenly. Join Marine? Sorry, I don't want to join Marine. What is the future of being a Marine? Even at the level of Marine Admiral, isn't he still a running dog of celestial dragons, where to fight? There is no freedom at all. He has his own ambitions, whether he wants to be king at sea or do whatever he wants, but don't be a Marine anyway. Garp Poo-ha laughed, showing no sign of disappointment. Is that so? Really sorry. After pondering for a second, he continued with a little temptation in his voice. Marine is a good place. It's a pity to miss it. I think you are still a trainee crew member. Are you really not considering coming to Marine? Before Caesar could speak, Rocks snorted coldly. His expression looked cold-blooded and arrogant. Garp, enough is enough. Laozi personally invited the powerful fighters on board. How could he casually join you lackeys of the celestial dragons? Hearing this, the faces of all the Marines were gloomy. Except for Garp, who was still heartless, the others were a little angry. Zephyr said at this moment, okay, let's stop using these words. Since we have caught you, let's stay here completely this time. War is imminent. Marine's coat was jerked off, revealing the neat suit inside. Garp clenched his iron fist, jumped violently, stepped on the air a few times, and jumped onto Rock's pirate ship. Bang! Like an invisible explosion of air. Garp and Rocks reacted to the bombardment's violent airflow like a gust of wind, blowing people to pieces. The fight hasn't started yet. The little guys on all sides fainted a lot. Rocks glanced at his combat strength, cunningly changed his attack method. Garp's iron fist struck hard. His broadsword was raised high. This time it is a confrontation between armed colors. Rocks has armament haki running through his body. The whole body is tightly wrapped like armament haki. However, no black armor can be seen on the surface. Its emission. Caesar's heart skipped a beat. The captain moved, so it was impossible for the others to stand still. The Marines who were not affected by hockey have already moved their ships closer or flew with moonwalk. They shouted and shouted. The collision of weapons on both sides, the sound of gunfire can be heard endlessly. Whitebeard slammed the naginata on the ground. Boom. Cracks spread from where the handles meet. The soldiers who approached him screamed again and again. They were shaken and flew out, or fell on the boat, or fell into the sea. Because of Whitebeard's ability to play shock fruit, the water surface is also rippling. Caused a small tsunami. Although the power is not as powerful as some at war at that time. But it is enough to deal with these shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Seeing this, Sengoku immediately stood in front of Whitebeard. A huge golden Buddha statue slowly appeared. The shadow formed by a volume larger than Whitebeard's stature enveloped Whitebeard. The sun shines on the Buddha image of the Sengoku avatar. The harsh light is undoubtedly salvation for Marine. Sengoku Vice Admiral, and the other side, Charlotte Linlin is holding a machete. Total annihilation. At this time, Charlotte Linlin was still very beautiful, but her attack was extremely vicious. It's too late, but it's fast. Zephyr jumped up in an instant, blocking Charlotte Linlin's attack. Charlotte Linlin, who was caught off guard, was thrown into the cabin. The pure armed color wraps the arms, especially the wrists are particularly strong, worthy of the name of Black Arm Zephyr. Zephyr Vice Admiral is amazing. The Marines cheered and were proud of their Vice Admiral. But the next second, they couldn't be happier. The smoke cleared. The warships there were all shattered. Almost broken. But the ant, who was still very young at this time, stood there like nothing had happened. No, there is still something to do. Her face was completely dark. On the face full of femininity, there are dark clouds. Damn Zephyr, I'm going to take your life away. In the end, the only female Vice Admiral Crane, without a doubt, stomped the air and used the moonwalk to intercept the Golden Lion jumping towards the Marine fleet. Golden Lion froze immediately, suspended in midair. Speaking of Marine, in terms of hard power, he is not afraid of anyone. But there have been instances where he was only a little afraid of this woman. This woman's ability is really too weird. It can actually cleanse the evil thoughts in people's hearts. For someone like him who has great ambitions from beginning to end, this is somewhat restrained. The strong men all took pictures of their opponents, and in order to protect their ships. Caesar swept all the Marines that climbed up into the sea. Clang. With a wave of the knife in his hand. He also cut off all the iron chains that Marines set up, and then jumped up one by one. Come to the Marine fleet. Who is that guy? He looks so strong. Seeing this, the Marines all gathered around, and the scalp of the densely packed crowd felt numb. Caesar was in no rush. Raise the long sword and wave it. Bang bang bang. With Hockey's long sword, he slashed one after another. The Marines were cut to pieces, and no one could resist Caesar for a while. But soon, these Marine elites who could be mixed in the New World organized an offensive and surrounded Caesar with various weapons wrapped in armed colors. Seeing this, Caesar opened his eyes slightly and his pupils shrank slightly. There was a buzz. An invisible air of terror spreads in the air. Hundreds of Marines were immediately impacted by this powerful momentum, and some weak-willed Marines fainted to the ground one after another. Nah. Nani? Conqueror's Hockey? That guy has Conqueror's Hockey too. The Marines were shocked. I thought that the Vice Admirals would deal with a few strong players. But I didn't expect that there was a fish that slipped through the net here. They couldn't help but sweat. Conqueror's Hockey restrained them too much from Marines who were not very strong. Caesar didn't care what they thought, and challenged a bunch of low-level Marines. It's as simple as crushing a few ants to death. The big commotion here attracted Garp's attention. He frowned and looked serious. Another guy with Conqueror's Hockey? While fighting, Sengoku also distractedly glanced at Caesar. His brows were tightly tightened. Damn it, why are the Rocks pirates so perverted? They awakened Conqueror's Hockey when they were only teenagers, and are they still using it so proficiently? Sengoku, who also owns Conquerors, looks gloomy. Another threat that cannot be ignored. Crane Vice Admiral, who was fighting Golden Lion, also looked sideways, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. When did the Rocks pirates have this powerful enemy? Conqueror's Hockey, Armament Hockey is particularly skilled, and swordsmanship is also quite good. It's no problem to stop 1,000 with one. Damn pirate. Zephyr looked in Caesar's direction, his gaze narrowed slightly. The conquerors suddenly erupted by Caesar really made these marines a little shocked and speechless. The real Rocks pirates, conquerors shouldn't be too popular. One for Rocks, one for Whitebeard, one for Golden Lion, one for Charlotte Linlin, one for Kaido, and now there's one more. Having 6 pirates with conquerors in just one pirate group is way too much. Caesar didn't care about the reactions of the marines. At this time, Caesar's eyes were fixed. Because a sharp slash was coming. He stood motionless on the spot. Observation Hockey had predicted this slash long ago, and just turned his face slightly to avoid the slash. The dodged slash flew towards the mast behind Caesar. With a bang, the mast was cut off and collapsed on the deck. The marines were all excited. It's Colonel Uchimura, who hastened to kill. Caesar's eyes moved slightly, looking at the person coming. His long brown curly hair was blown up high, and he had a powerful aura about him. However, in Caesar's eyes, it's just a marine with good strength. Glancing at the sword in his hand, he chuckled lightly. Are you also a sword wielder? That's fine. The opponent's figure was extremely fast, and the sword in his hand was shining sharply in the sun. Hey! One jumps over. Caesar jumped up too. Hockey was not needed at all against this kind of person. The long knife in his hand rolled, and he swung a sharp slash. Thousand bird slash. Blue slash materialized as a roaring sharp-billed bird. Boom. Uchimura struggled to a gear, and with a buzzing sound, the powerful force forced him to retreat quickly. What? After a cry of pain, he barely escaped, but his right arm was stabbed, and blood gushed out. Colonel. The marines were anxious, and the fear in their hearts became more and more intense. Let me. A thick voice sounded, followed by rumbling footsteps. Those marines burst into tears as if seeing a life-saving straw. Mosley Rear Admiral. The marines breathed a sigh of relief. Mosley Rear Admiral, there should be no need to be afraid now. The person who came was almost 3 people taller than him, with an incomparably strong figure. When he came, the deck of the ship trembled. Caesar raised an eyebrow slightly. Like a titan, about the same size as Newgate and Kaido. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes. This time, the opponent seemed to be very strong. Mosley carried a huge tomahawk on his shoulder and slashed fiercely in his direction. Caesar didn't dodge. The corners of his mouth slightly raised. Then see if it's my hands that are hard, or your axe that is sharp. Is that guy scared stupid? Why is he motionless? There are marines' uncertain guesses. On another warship, Crane Vice Admiral took a moment to glance at the situation here when he was coming and going with Golden Lion. It's really that Caesar made a lot of noise. Seeing this, Golden Lion smiled and said, "Are you worried about your subordinates?" With a smile on his face, he looked a little gloating. You are right to worry. That guy is very strong. His strength is only inferior to mine, Newgate, and Linlin. Crane Vice Admiral's expression froze, a little unbelievable. That guy must be in his teens, but Golden Lion Whitebeard is already in his 30s, almost 40 years old, and has been famous in the sea for some years. How is this possible? Clang! The axe slashed hard, breaking through the wind. With the huge battle axe and the astonishing arm strength of the Titans, if this hits the target, the person will probably be split in half. The marines all stared wide-eyed and held their breath, not wanting to miss a second of the picture. Caesar gently raised his hand to block the huge axe. How? How is it possible? That's the Mosley Rear Admiral comparable to the Titans. The marines were sweating coldly, looking at this scene, their faces turned pale. Mosley looked down and saw the thick hockey on Caesar's hand, and he was stunned. What a horrible hockey. Caesar smiled slightly. It's okay. Immediately afterwards, Mosley's eyes flickered, and Caesar's figure suddenly disappeared. His pupils moved slightly from side to side. The next moment, with a bang, his head fell to the ground. The 7 or 8 meter high body completely collapsed to the ground, causing the marine ship to shake violently. Sengoku's gaze also turned to this side from time to time. I began to re-evaluate Caesar's power and possible threats in the future. At a young age, he has already mastered the use of armament hockey. He has awakened Conqueror's hockey and can manipulate it proficiently. And just the brief feeling just now, you can feel the strength and potential of the Conquerors. This is a man with great ambitions. If he fails to kill this young man today, he will be killed here. The achievements of this person in the future will never be lower than Rocks. And the Rocks have one that's tough enough. Sengoku gritted his teeth, and the next moment, he was hit by Whitebeard. Sengoku, fighting lousy, where are you looking around? Now is not the time to be complacent. Garp and others also saw the strength of Caesar, and their hearts sank. Time flies. The battle lasted for 2 days. Everyone was a little tired, especially Caesar, who hadn't fully recovered. Golden Lion was very impatient and irritable. How long will we fight like this? With a pensive face on his face, Rox yelled at the crowd and gave the order to retreat. He doesn't want to start a complete war with Marine at this moment, and judging from the current situation, it is not easy to decide the winner, and their pirate group must suffer heavy losses. Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Big Mom, Kaido, and Caesar all responded to Rox. Don't try to escape. Crane Vice Admiral turned over, jumped up, and grabbed Golden Lion's ankle with his palm. The Golden Lion immediately floated higher, avoiding Vice Admiral's grasp, and gave her a mocking look. They were no longer interested in fighting, and quickly retreated to the ship, knocking out all the Marines on the ship. Rox slashed casually towards the area where Marines were densely packed on the Marine ship. Garp paused, and had no choice but to go immediately to intercept. The Rox used this to get rid of Garp. After returning to the boat, he walked away. After a while, the Rox pirate ship has disappeared from the sea. There were only 3 of their Marine ships left in place, and 2 of them were already dilapidated. The sea returned to calm. All the Marines looked at each other, full of doubts. Go. They were a little confused, wondering how the bloodthirsty and cruel Rox would voluntarily leave the battle. On the Marine ship, there were some pirates who were captured too late to retreat, watching the direction in which the Rox pirate ship disappeared, crying loudly, "Captain!" Zephyr stepped forward and kicked the tearful pirate hard. "Shut up." The others also frowned. It really doesn't look like Rox. All of them chased the Rox pirates and fought against Rox many times. I am fairly familiar with his character, but I really can't understand Rox's escape action just now. Crane Vice Admiral frowned, with a cold expression on his face. After a long silence, he said slowly, "Never mind, treat the wounded and return to the base." Rox, maybe there are some concerns, or some conspiracy. Zephyr also nodded approvingly. Why do you think it's so complicated? Go back to the base now, it's important to treat the wounded. And Sengoku didn't say a word. He looked at the direction where the Rox pirates left and pondered for a while. His eyes were calm and deep. At this moment, he has the aura of being a marshal more than 10 years later. All in all, there is one thing that should not be underestimated. That means their strength has become stronger, and they continue to grow stronger. The power of the Rox pirates continues to expand, adding a lot of powerful combat power. When they were separated, they were desperados who did all kinds of evil. When they get together, their strength will be even stronger. After speaking, he thought of the figure of the newcomer, and his eyes suddenly turned cold. And that newcomer, why didn't he receive relevant information? The addition of such strong players is a very big threat to our Marine. Especially, the other party is also a talented and ambitious person. Crane Vice Admiral frowned, his expression cold. It's an unfamiliar face. I've confirmed that I haven't seen him on other official arrest warrants. Should have just left the sea and joined the Rox pirates. Several people were silent for a while, gave up guessing the reason for Rox's escape, and instead discussed Caesar, the newcomer on Rox's ship. Around them, Marines are repairing ships and healing wounds. Several vice admirals entered the cabin and sat together, just like a meeting. If I remember correctly, Rox said the man's name was Alexander Caesar. Sengoku was the first to speak. His strength should not be underestimated. The first task now is to find out his identity information and issue a reward. Crane Vice Admiral nodded. The expressions on Garp and Zephyr's faces were also very serious. The strength of the Rox pirates is strong in itself, and it is not good to add such a person who has both conqueror's haki. Sengoku's voice was serious, showing fear of Caesar. I think that this boy should be killed in time. Zephyr gave him a sideways glance. He disapproved of this approach, but he didn't retort immediately. Then, what do you want to do? Is that even worth talking about? Of course it's a wanted warrant and a reward. Sengoku glanced at Zephyr. Hearing this, Zephyr sighed in his heart. Since he is a pirate, of course he must be prepared to be wanted by Marine. But he felt a pity in his heart. Such a talented young man actually devoted himself to pirates? Crane nodded. That boy, visually estimated to be around 15 or 16 years old, joined the vicious Rox pirates at such a young age. In time, it will definitely become a huge threat to the world government. And Crane paused for a while, as if remembering something. That guy's status in the Rox pirate ship is not low. and his strength is only second to the veteran powerhouses such as Whitebeard, Golden Lion and Charlotte Linlin. Nani? Sengoku and the others were shocked. They did see what Caesar was capable of, but Caesar was playing against people who were far weaker than him and didn't use his full power. They didn't know that Caesar was so powerful. Their expressions became extremely serious. Then let's make a decision like this, follow up, issue his arrest warrant to the whole world, set a higher bounty, no matter life or death. As the resourceful general, Sengoku has always made a decision for the leader among others. The others nodded without comment. Come on, go on, go on. Suddenly, the sound of a phone bug rang. Garp pulled a tiny snail out of his clothes. Moxie, Moxie. Sengoku answered the phone bug. On the side, listening to the reports over there, Garp's expression gradually became excited. Peeved ha 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 ha, it turned out to be that fellow Roger. With a big laugh, Garp directly picked up the new marine coat that had just been delivered, and walked towards the door. I'm leaving first, this time I must catch that guy Roger. Sengoku and the others looked at each other in blank dismay, looking speechlessly like Garp who was meeting old friends rather than catching pirates. Their ships floated in the air, and the wind roared in the sky, making their hair disheveled. Report, the front can land safely. A navigator came out and said to the Golden Lion. Hey ha 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 ha, then land. He lightly raised his fingers, controlling the slow landing of the ship. The wind makes people feel very comfortable. The pirates were extremely excited when they narrowly escaped death. Thanks to the ability of Captain Shiki Lion Fruit, otherwise we wouldn't be able to leave the battlefield so easily. A group of pirates adored Golden Lion, and Golden Lion laughed again after hearing this. Caesar stood on the deck, glanced in the direction of the cabin, wondering why Rox was running away. He's not the type to be afraid of Marine. Of course, he wouldn't be the kind of person who cared about the casualties of his companions. Judging from the number of strong players, the Rox pirates are clearly superior. Never mind. He shook his head and didn't think about it anymore. Anyway, it didn't have much to do with him. It was enough for him to do his own thing well. Brad on the side breathed a sigh of relief. This is the first time I've met Marine. I thought I was going to die. Caesar smiled. How is it possible? You underestimate your ability too much. Zone Devil Fruit's ability has always been very powerful. Combined with your physical training these years, it's enough to beat those school-level Marines. Brad sighed. Of course I know. While fighting, he also watched the fights of other cadres. Fighting with Marine, almost all of them are at full strength, showing their peak strength. Fortunately, it was at sea. If it was on an island, the map would have been redrawn long ago. After only being down for a second, he was excited again. Speaking of which, there is also good news. Brad looked at him mysteriously. What is it? Brad instantly reveals his armament hockey. His arms are almost completely wrapped. Caesar suddenly opened his eyes with joy. Your armament hockey is much stronger. Before, it was only the hands, barely able to use armament hockey to harden and wrap the forearm. After going to sea, it can spread to the upper arm in a short time. He patted Brad on the shoulder hard, genuinely happy for him. Brad was also excited. This is the result I have accumulated during this time. This pirate group is too pervert. The crew members fight each other, regardless of life and death. And because he followed Caesar, his status was a little detached as soon as he got on the ship, so he was naturally targeted. Fortunately, he ate devil fruit, a powerful fruit of the saber-toothed tiger. Therefore, he was not fighting for almost a day, and when his life was threatened, his strength was sure to become stronger. Then I'm going to test your strength. Caesar pulled Brad into the fight. Brad wailed, no way, you're coming too. The ship landed lightly on the sea. The pirates looked around. Yaxi, the Marines are no longer in sight. The ship resumed normal sailing. A week later, a newspaper delivery seagull in a hat spreads bounties with Caesar's face all over the world. Excitedly, Brad ran over holding the bounty notice. His eyes were full of excitement. Caesar, Caesar, there is your bounty. All the pirates immediately gathered together, and there was a lot of discussion between you and me. Caesar raised his eyebrows slightly, and took the stack of wanted warrants in his hand. Alexander Caesar, offer a bounty of 380 million Baileys? When it came to the latter, the pirate's voice changed. It's close to the rewards of the cadres, it's amazing. Whitebeard and others also came to join in the fun. Golden Lion patted Caesar's shoulder, not bad. Caesar's heart fluctuated a little, and he seemed to be doing well. It's like the joy of being recognized for your strength. Rox laughed wildly when he got the reward order. When Caesar scrolled down, he also saw Brad's reward order. 30 million Baileys, that's pretty impressive. Brad suddenly felt a little embarrassed, his cheeks turned red. In a blink of an eye, 2 months have passed since they went to sea. Rock's ship finally arrived at the base camp of the Rock's pirate map, Hive Island. On the front of the Hive Island is a huge tall building in the shape of a skull. Brad's eyes widened in surprise because of the strange shape. Caesar frowned, and before he got off the boat, he heard the noisy and chaotic sounds from the island. Finally back, our pirate paradise. Rox opened his arms. Bahahaha, go have fun, pirates. Oh. The pirates couldn't wait to land on the island. A paradise is indeed like a paradise. There are people who get drunk after drinking too much alcohol, people who play poker, and people who have fun with their arms around women. Everywhere is full of arrogant and wanton laughter of pirates. The whole island is chaotic and disorderly, more unbearable than a casino. Caesar can only be described by the word, smog. Although he didn't like such an environment in his heart, he didn't show it. Still training as usual. He and Brad found a house on the island away from the noisy streets. As for the original owner of this house, what else is there to say, just drive him away. On this island, the jungle of the jungle is the real jungle, and the winner is king. West blue shore of Hive Island. Boom. Caesar slammed hard on the huge stone in front of him with his hardened fist. Click, click, click. Where the fist hit, dozens of cracks quickly spread out, and then exploded with a bang. Gravel splashed everywhere. Smoke billowed. The boulder tens of meters high was instantly reduced to ashes. Great. Brad's exclamation came from behind. Caesar turned around, met Brad's starry eyes, and smiled. Under the sunlight, his handsome face looked warm and full of security. The strong muscles give people a sense of security. The few women who were lying behind the boulder and peeking at it suddenly let out a low scream, their faces flushed. Caesar glanced at the stone helplessly, but finally said nothing, and led Brad into the forest. Practice gymnastics. Fine. He had come to Caesar for training, of course. Boom. Armament hockey's hardened black fist suddenly smashed towards the opponent. With a bang, a heavy sound exploded in the air. The airflow scattered in all directions. Brad's armament hockey has also grown lately, but it's nowhere near as strong as Caesar. After Caesar suppressed his strength, after hundreds of rounds, Brad lay down on the ground. Looking at the clouds and clouds in the sky, I feel leisurely. Anxiety arose in Brad's heart for no reason. Probably because the living habits of the pirates on Hive Island were too difficult for him to accept. He is on this island, but he doesn't feel any sense of belonging. Only by the side of a familiar partner can there be a sense of peace of mind. Hearing Brad sigh, Caesar asked him what's wrong. Brad told him truthfully how he felt. Caesar was silent for a long time, but said, "It's okay, don't force yourself to find a sense of belonging here. The Rock's pirates may just be our temporary habitat." Hearing his words, Brad suddenly understood. Having interacted with Caesar for so long, he is too aware of the ambitions of this partner and boss. That will never be inferior to others, and now, it is only for a while. A small deserted island around the Hive Island. Caesar and Whitebeard stood facing each other. After some more time on the island, Caesar felt that his strength had grown, so he decided to challenge Whitebeard. "Ku la 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 la, you are really tenacious." The young Whitebeard actually developed the later magic laugh. Newgate, who was in his 30s, looked at Caesar, a teenager who was younger than him, with tolerance and tenderness in his eyes, as if looking at a child. It seems that this guy's habit of wanting to be a father has gradually formed. Caesar's face was solemn, his pupils shrank slightly, and his figure disappeared in place. "Call out." The figure quickly flashed in front of Whitebeard, jumped into the air, and slammed into Whitebeard with black fists. The speed is fast, rubbing against the air, and making a buzzing sound that pierces the air. Whitebeard's naginata was already standing aside, swinging forward as Caesar's fist fell. Does not have any hockey attached. Click click click. The air first shattered from his fist, and the spiderweb-like cracks spread rapidly. Boom boom boom. Behind Caesar, the ground touched by Shockfruit's ability was filled with dust and sand. Caesar was blocked in midair and couldn't advance half a point. Ah ah ah. The veins on Caesar's forehead burst, and he screamed with all his might. Shout loudly. With the other hand, he swung another heavy punch. The armed color is hardened to its peak state. A transparent ball of light exuding a pale white halo suddenly appeared in Whitebeard's hand. Boom. Bang bang bang. Caesar was knocked away by the strong shock force. Even if the opponent does not use hockey at all, the power of shock fruit alone cannot be underestimated. Caesar took a deep breath and pulled out the long sword from his waist. Seeing this, Whitebeard also took the naginata standing aside and swung it vigorously. Rumble. There was no direct contact between the blade and the sword body, and the airflow smashed apart in the air. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. From the perspective of the town, you can only see the smoke and dust billowing here, and there are a few rumbling sounds from time to time. Hey, what's going on? Is the captain fighting? There's too much movement. The ground around Caesar and Whitebeard was completely shattered by the force of the collision. The ground of the complete deserted island was suddenly dilapidated. Caesar's sword is wrapped in armed color, struggling to resist Whitebeard's naginata and shock fruit's ability. The body was forced to move slowly backwards by a powerful force. Because of the force, all the muscles in his body were tensed, and his upper body was also tightly wrapped in armored colors, which prevented the terrifying and strange vibration force. He gritted his teeth and told himself to hold on. He has improved and cannot be easily beaten by Whitebeard. In that case, what kind of strong are you talking about? What kind of future are you talking about? Go away. With a roar, the clouds in the sky seemed to be scattered by his aura. Against the humming and vibration, like the real air, it rises against the trend. There was a flash of appreciation in Whitebeard's eyes. This kid is not bad. Zilla zilla. Caesar had a long knife in his hand, and strands of black lightning came out. Whitebeard raised his eyebrows slightly, surprise flickering in his eyes. It's Conqueror's hockey winding. This kid has already learned how to use it. Whitebeard's shockwave, blocked by him, was thrown upwards. There were a few clicks in the air. Caesar was completely in a fighting state, not realizing the change of his long knife for a while. Relying on the instinct of fighting, he jumped up. Holding the long knife in both hands, he swept across vigorously. Clang. Swords collided, between thunder and lightning. The rumbling huge airflow mixed with the sharp and ear-piercing roar of weapons spread out a long distance away. The airflow mixed with hockey formed a circle and quickly plundered around. In the forest not far away, the trees were smashed to pieces. The booms came one after another. The whole island vibrated constantly. There seemed to be signs of disintegration. The two who were immersed in the battle didn't care. Whitebeard felt the excitement that he hadn't seen for a long time, although the kid's strength was still a little far from his. However, his talent is extremely strong. The speed of strength improvement is as fast as sitting on a rocket. He began to look forward to this kid's growth. Kang kang kang. The sound of impact is endless. The collision of the airflow is also getting stronger every time. Even the waves around the deserted island were boiling. The two phases separated and faced each other for a long time amidst the shaking of the earth. No one spoke. Caesar had already noticed the black lightning that had wrapped around the blade for the last time. That's Conqueror's hockey winding. He was extremely excited. Finally learned it. Then he looked back at Whitebeard, with an extremely determined light in his eyes. Both hands gripped the hilt of the sword. Come on, the last blow. Whitebeard threw his head back and laughed. Ku-la-la-la-la, come on. Boom. The two figures walked towards each other at the same time. The speed is so fast that there are only afterimages left. The naked eye can't capture the movements of the two at all. Clang. The two looked at each other across the intersecting weapons, and the eyes of both sides were burning with fierce fighting intent. The excitement of meeting opponents made the blood in their bodies start to boil. The desire for victory drives them to do their best. Caesar's veins popped out, his cheeks flushed. Ku-la-la-la-la. Whitebeard laughed wildly, but also genuinely. Boom. Conqueror's hockey and the other side wrapped the shockwave of this hockey. In midair, a mushroom cloud exploded. The sound shook the entire Hive Island. The deserted island and the Beehive Island shook together. Rocks, Golden Lion, Big Mom and others looked up towards the coast of the deserted island. The ground shook for a moment, then calmed down. But the turmoil in the hearts of everyone present could not be calmed down for a long time. That rookie is too strong. He even fought Whitebeard to such a dark place. Bright. There was a crisp cracking sound. Bang. The broken sword fell to the ground. Caesar's pupils suddenly constricted. His sword is broken. Ho ho. Ho ho. He lay on the ground, breathing heavily. Lost. Caesar fell to his knees, very unwilling. Even with the initial mastery of Conqueror's Haki, he still can't keep up with Whitebeard's strength. Keep working hard. I look forward to the day you beat me, ku la 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 la. After Whitebeard left, Caesar barely stood up on trembling legs. Suddenly, click, click. He looked down and the ground began to crumble. Huge chunks of land cracked and the sea surged. Not long after, the entire island almost sank into the sea. Stepping on the moonwalk, Caesar looked at the rippling sea, feeling a little surprised. Their battle even destroyed a small island. Fortunately, it was a desert island. After the fight with Whitebeard, Caesar didn't go around to challenge again. He is still trying to digest the many things that battle brought him. Especially Conqueror's Haki winding. When fighting, it is used unconsciously, but it may not be able to successfully entangle next time. This move, the use of Conqueror's Haki, can greatly improve one's attack power and comprehensive combat power. When fighting Whitebeard, the epiphany of this trick made him lose not so badly. Caesar's brain is loaded with countless things like a high-speed CPU. Also, his sword is broken. This is already the second sword he has broken. It seems that he needs to find a famous sword, and it is troublesome to change the sword every time he fights. It's not that his Haki is not good, but to fight the real strong, the quality of the weapon is also very important. He needs a famous knife of the 21 level. And the existing black knives in this world are not suitable for everyone. The compatibility between man and knife directly affects combat effectiveness. Only the black knife tempered by oneself can exert its greatest strength. He touched his chin and walked out, frowning tightly. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his head. Perhaps, I should find a top swordsmith to tailor a top famous sword for me. Then find a swordsmith. Let him help build a top-notch weapon that suits him. Caesar thought to himself. After a few days. At night, the moon hangs high. After Caesar and Brad finished their daily training, they came to a tavern on the island. This tavern has the style of modern KTV. There was deafening music playing inside, and the colorful lights made people dizzy. The pirates indulged in such intoxication, dancing to the rhythm, or drinking. Caesar rubbed his temples, not quite used to such a noisy environment. But Brad is very curious about this place, and he can only risk his life to accompany the gentleman. Picking up the beer on the table, gulping down a few sips, and belching lightly, the tense nerves were actually relieved a little in this place. The two chatted indifferently. He was a little absent-minded, and what he thought about in his mind these days was always about his saber problem. He made up his mind to find a swordsmith, but he had no idea where to find a powerful swordsmith. Where did you get your information? Is it accurate? Not far away, two pirates were whispering. He paused when he heard the word, information. He pricked up his ears and listened intently. One of the pirates looked proud. Of course it is accurate. I bought this information from Shaki. Shaki? That retired female pirate? That's right, it's her, she's doing information business now. Rox glanced at Caesar, to find Shaki? Caesar nodded. I want to ask her to buy information about the world's top swordsmiths. Rox suddenly remembered that Caesar's sword was broken during the fight with Whitebeard. Thinking of the battle that destroyed an island, Rox has some insight. For the truly strong, a weapon that can display its own strength is also very important. Okay, let's go. Rox thought about it. There was still some time left for that matter, and Caesar might not be needed for a while. After Caesar thanked him, he turned and walked out. The next second, his footsteps stopped suddenly. But Rox behind him gave an evil smile slightly, his eyes were deep and indifferent, and there was a touch of bloodthirsty in his eyes. You should understand the fate of betraying me. Caesar narrowed his eyes with his back to Rox, and quickly returned to normal. He turned back. I will not betray you until you are dead, Captain Rox. Caesar's words were full of deep meaning. That's good, let's go. Rox paid no heed to the disrespect in Caesar's words. He and Brand took a small sailboat and left the Hive Island. Brad stretched his waist. I feel comfortable after leaving that island. So, where are we going next? Caesar reported a new world island, and the two confirmed their route and set off. He remembered that in the original book, Shaki was in the Sabodi archipelago, but he is not there yet. Brad nodded and adjusted the sail. New world, a fairly prosperous island. So beautiful. For the first time, Brad, who really came to other islands, looked around excitedly. He helplessly tugged at the back of his collar. Go find someone first. Following the address in the intelligence, the two of Caesar quickly found the place. Shaki's rip-off bar. After looking at the name of the bar above his head, Caesar wondered in his mind if it was called by this name right now. Welcome Light. With a thin white cigarette between his fingers, Shaki leaned lazily against the counter. After looking up and seeing Caesar, his eyes paused slightly. This young man feels so strong. Judging by the expressions of the two of them, it didn't look like they came to drink coffee at all. Shaki? He said Shaki's name exactly. After being slightly stunned, Shaki smiled slowly. Oh, it seems that I'm not here to drink. Looking at Caesar, Shaki's mind has already had not much information about Caesar. After a while, Caesar revealed his reason for coming. Swordsmith. Shaki propped his chin, narrowed his eyes and chuckled when he heard what he said. Yes, but this kind of specified information will take some time. Caesar nodded, turned and left. A few days later, Caesar came to Shaki's bar again. And Shaki lived up to expectations and handed him a list. Caesar glanced around, gave the intelligence money, and left with Brad. In the hotel, Caesar looked at the very detailed information, which contained the names, addresses, and even photos of several top swordsmiths in the world. His fingertips slid across the list above, and suddenly, his eyes settled on a name. His eyes froze for a moment, and a light flashed in his eyes. Shimotsuki Kosaburo. He remembered that he was the one who forged the famous Hidao characters in the original book, Yanmo, and Tianyu Zan, the three top 21 famous knives. Let us not talk about Hidao Yiwen, the knife that Zoro carried on his body from beginning to end. Let's talk about Yanmo. It is a famous sword that can make the user release emission automatically. It is extremely domineering and powerful. And Tianyu Zan is known as a sword that can cut even the sky. It is enough to see how powerful Shimotsuki Kozaburo's swordcasting ability is. He suppressed the joy in his heart and immediately made a decision. Go find this man and make him a sword. In the original book, Shimotsuki Kozaburo did not appear many times. And it only appears in other people's memory or retelling. He was originally a Wanokuni craftsman, but 50 years ago, according to the time calculation, that is, 10 years ago now, he illegally escaped from Wanokuni, which was locked down. Then there were twists and turns, and finally stayed in East Blue. According to the available information, he is the master of the dojo where Zoro learned swordsmanship and the father of Shimotsuki Koshiro. Well now. This person should have been to East Blue. No matter, go to East Blue to see first. Are you leaving so soon? Let's go. Come again when you have a chance. Brad's eyes sparkled with excitement. Then it's done. He also wanted to stay here for a while and enjoy different scenery. But right now, his saber is more important. The small sailboat sets off towards the North Blue calm belt. To get to the East Blue quickly, they had to go through the North Blue, and before they got to the North Blue, they needed to cross the calm belt. That is, the lair of overlords. 3 days later, the small sailboat entered the calm belt. Brad was curious about the research with the map before, and when he arrived here, he opened his arms to perceive. Ah, there is really no wind. Okay. Caesar nodded. He was no longer surprised by this peculiar climate and geography. What's the matter? The boat is going up. Brad lowered his head in a panic, and immediately held on to the side of the boat. It's Sea Kings. Brad was shocked immediately. Is this Sea Kings too big? No way, so unlucky. Caesar looked helplessly at where Brad was yelling. There's no surprise there. The calm belt is the lair of the Sea Kings. It's strange not to have one. Crash. Ahead appeared another Sea Kings rushed out of the sea. From the looks of it, it should be an electric eel like Sea Kings, with a tentacle on its head, flashing electric light. With a roar, it quickly swam towards Caesar and the two of them on the sea surface. Immediately afterwards, 1 head, 2 heads and 3 heads. Dozens of Sea Kings surrounded them instantly. All of them were vicious, with greed in their eyes, fluid dripping from their mouths wide open, and they probably regarded them as food in their stomachs. That's so much. Brad's eyes widened sharply, and his legs trembled a little. It's nothing at one end. This group can't beat them at all. Without the boat, it's really doomed. Brother, it's up to you. I can't swim. Caesar glanced at the pale Brad, whispering. Immediately, Caesar's eyes were slightly closed and the conqueror's haki was released. In an instant, the roar of the wild beast suddenly fell silent. Those Sea Kings stared in the direction of Caesar. The originally fierce and cruel pupils shrank in, as if they had encountered a natural enemy, showing fear and panic. Roll. Caesar haki was full, and he gave a cold drink. Bang. The boat fell on the sea, and the waves it stirred up, like rain, splashed them all over. The Sea Kings, as if they had been pardoned, plunged into the sea in an instant and swam away into the distance. Brad breathed a sigh of relief. Let's go. Caesar was very helpless. Look at how promising you are. Brad's strength is good. He is only 16 years old, and he already has the strength of a Marine elite colonel. But most of the time, Brad is mostly Buddhist, and he doesn't have the strong desire to become stronger like Caesar. When he went to sea, he just followed Caesar and got used to being with Caesar. Meanwhile, Marine headquarters, blah blah. Hasty footsteps sounded outside the door. There was a knock on the door, and the door was pushed open after being allowed. An agent in a Marine uniform walks in. What's up? Report Sengoku Vice Admiral. Marine Intelligence Department, track down the newcomer on the rocks ship, Caesar. Sengoku's eyebrows froze suddenly. Caesar's figure circled in his mind. He frowned tightly. Where is it? He took a companion and entered the comm belt between New World and North Blue, and seemed to be going across the comm belt to North Blue. Sengoku was a little puzzled when he heard this. North Blue? What is this kid doing there? Could it be that the rocks have some conspiracy? A trace of vigilance flashed across his eyes. Riding the Conqueror's hockey at such a young age, he won't be a nobody in time. It will be difficult to really deal with it in the future, but at this moment, it happens to be a good opportunity. After thinking for a while, Sengoku ordered, "Go get Zephyr, Vice Admiral." Yes. Outside the door, a soldier answered and left quickly. It wasn't long before Zephyr arrived at Sengoku's office wearing a marine coat. What is it? Sengoku. After Zephyr came in, he sat on the sofa beside him and asked. It's about the newcomer to the Rocks Pirates, Caesar. Oh? Zephyr was a little curious. He was quite impressed with Caesar. Then, Sengoku recounted Caesar's whereabouts information, and then expressed his concerns. So, what do you mean? You want me to chase after it? After hearing this, Zephyr guessed what Sengoku meant. That's right. Sengoku nodded. I know your principle is not to kill, so just bring him back. Well, it just so happens that the last mission has just been completed. Zephyr nodded, stood up, flicked his coat, and strode out. An island in North Blue. The shore is bustling, the dock workers come and go, and the ships are crowded on the shore like sardines. It's a lively town. Caesar and Brad docked the boat on the shore and landed on the island. Brad drooped his head, clutching his stomach with a haggard face. Well, it's lively, but so hungry. After sailing all the way, Brad was haggard all over. The spirit of the moment when I first came out has completely dissipated. Caesar patted him on the shoulder. Thank you. On this journey, it was all up to Brad to sail. He had learned some simple sailing knowledge on the island before. Although he didn't understand half of it, it was better than someone who didn't understand it all. He completely forgot about the need for an excellent navigator to go to sea. Fortunately, he has a permanent pointer on his body and is strong, otherwise he will either starve to death or lose his way. Go ashore to replenish supplies and move on. After hearing Caesar's words, Brad nodded and reached out to count. The food has long been gone. I am tired of eating fish. Fresh water is almost gone, and there are fruits and the like. There are a lot of things to replenish. On the boat, I ate all kinds of grilled sea animals every day, and I was completely tired of eating them. The two went to a restaurant for dinner. The island was relatively open, and their visit didn't attract much attention. But Caesar glanced at the glass window of the hotel. Not far away was a man holding a newspaper, quickly lowered his head and looked away. He looked back indifferently. No matter whether it was an official agency or a bounty hunter, he was fearless. In an alley, two men in black suits poked their heads out to take a look at the restaurant, then quickly looked away, and continued to hide in the corner of the alley. Hey, hey, hey. The two men looked at each other, and one of them took out a phone bug from his pocket. Master Rear Admiral, found a newcomer on the Rocks pirate ship on Lianpeng Island, Alexander Caesar with a bounty of 380 million Baileys. Marine's voice was very serious and full of vigilance. The strength of this rookie is simply too powerful. The first bounty was offered, and the bounty was close to 400 million, which was unprecedented. Therefore, Marines everywhere are extremely vigilant and fearful of this person. The voiceover there was obviously panicked. What, that guy? Don't act on your own. Wait for me to rush over there. I will also report to Zephyr Vice Admiral. You continue to keep an eye on his whereabouts and try to intercept people on the island if necessary. Click. After a series of hasty sounds, he hung up the phone. Yes. The two Marines in casual clothes looked at each other again. After eating and drinking, Caesar and Brad each carried a big burden and walked to the boat with several barrels of heavy objects in their hands. Caesar's eyes flicked back. Under observation Hockey's perception, those commotional footsteps were particularly ear-piercing. "Can you finally bear it? Blah blah." The sound of orderly footsteps sounded. Brad was taken aback. In the next instant, countless Marines poured out from all directions of the town. "Pirate Alexander Caesar, you are surrounded by Marines, please follow us safely, don't resist." Caesar sneered. "Throw the supplies to Brad, bring the supplies safely to the ship. As for the offal, I'll take care of it." "Okay, you have to be careful." Roar. Zone Devil Fruit played a role, and Brad transformed into a huge saber-toothed tiger, with several large bags of supplies on his back, roaring and rushing towards Marine. The bang of guns was endless, but none of them could hit the sensitive saber-toothed tiger. Caesar's figure flashed. "Get in between Brad and Marine." Caesar suddenly appeared high in the sky, causing the Marines to panic and shoot. Bang bang bang. Armament Hockey's fist strike. The violent punch wind mixed with Hockey instantly sent hundreds of people flying. He picked up a knife on the ground and twirled it in his hand for a while. Suddenly it was thrown in one direction. Boom boom boom. Despite not having any Hockey attached, his already powerful arm wounded dozens of Marines. Seeing that Brad had already brought the supplies to the ship, a terrifying aura emerged from Caesar's body. Conqueror's Hockey swept away in an instant. The wind is hunting. The world was silent for a moment. He walked out slowly. Next to or behind. Kang kang kang. Bang bang bang. Weapon dropped, the soldier fell. None sober. As soon as Brad got on the boat, Caesar came running. "Hurry up, the Marines may have pursuers, although he is not afraid. But he has his own purpose for this trip, and it's not good to attract too many eyes at this time. The next place is Upside Down Mountain. After crossing the Upside Down Mountain, you can reach East Blue." In Caesar, several hours after Brad sailed away, Zephyr, who arrived here, looked at all the fainting sailors in front of him. His brows were furrowed, his eyes were full of coldness. "Escaped." Report. According to eyewitnesses, Caesar and his companions went in the direction of Mount Upside Down. Marine reported. Zephyr looked in the direction of Upside Down Mountain, squinted his eyes slightly. Upside Down Mountain. Going to the first half of the Grand Line. What is the purpose? After standing still and thinking for a while, he flicked Marine's coat. The word, justice, shines brightly in the sun. Continue to pursue. This man can't be allowed to stir up chaos in the sea and be unscrupulous. Close to Upside Down Mountain, the heavy rain was pouring down. The ocean current is too strong, and why do I feel that the ocean current has been receding? Caesar looked up to see where the flag was flying. You feel right. It's true. But it doesn't matter, just go straight ahead. Brad's eyes widened. Is that so? The next moment, there was a bang. Blue and white lightning flashed across the sky. They got a first glimpse of what the red line might look like. Well, it's so big and so high that you can't see the top at all. Upside Down Hill is the first intersection of the red line and the Grand Line. The red line, which divides the first half and the second half of the Grand Line. The Upside Down Mountain is the only passage connecting the Grand Line and the Four Seas. From the waterway in front of them, rush to the top of the mountain. Take the waterway to the northwest to reach East Blue smoothly. Caesar, who had firmly memorized the world map in his mind, raised his head slightly. The rapid raindrops hit his face. Being blown by the strong sea breeze, the clothes are rattling, and you can feel the rush and danger of the water flow just by looking at it. On the Red Mountain, there is a small waterway between the rocks. On the Upside Down Mountain, the water goes against the mountain and goes up. Like climbing stairs, stay towards the top of the mountain. This is totally swimming against the current. The sound of rustling water almost drowned their voices. How do we get there? Dash forward. Caesar's cold words made Brad's eyes widen suddenly. Go on, just kidding. Just rush up like this, such a fierce current. Caesar's brows and eyes were still calm. Don't worry, it's okay. Really, really? Caesar nodded. Just take the helm, and leave the rest to me. Boom boom boom. The rapid current made waves on the sea. Crying, almost swallowing the ship. The boat was running at full speed, and Caesar concentrated on protecting the whole boat and heading towards the middle of the waterway. When it reached the peak and the ship needed to turn, Caesar controlled the ship to make a twist in the air and smoothly landed on the East Blue Channel. Fortunately, there were no boats on the East Blue Waterway at this time. But the East Blue Current, like the North Blue Current, flows toward the top of the mountain, then converges at the top of the mountain, and flows into the Grand Line. Therefore, after entering the East Blue Channel, although their boats were facing down, they were sailing against the current. However, with Caesar, this is not a problem. Brad tried to help correct the boat's direction, so that it did not hit the rocks next to the waterway. After a while, they had scrambled over the upside-down mountains, washed down the channel, and entered the waters of the East Blue. Caesar leaned against the side of the ship and glanced at the eternity pointer. This is the direction of a random island on East Blue. It is only used to indicate the direction of East Blue. After arriving here, this pointer will not be used. Where are you going next? Brad asked. Caesar pursed his lips and thought for a second. Go to Goa Kingdom. He only vaguely remembered that the village of Shimotsky was in Goa Kingdom or an island near Goa Kingdom. It is unclear whether the Shimotsky family at this time had already traveled to East Blue, went to Shimotsky village, or established Shimotsky village. In short, you have to go to the Kingdom of Goa first. Grand Line, Naval Headquarters. We have received word from East Blue that Alexander Caesar's ship was spotted in the East Blue area, the same ship that was previously docked at North Blue. In the office, Sengoku spoke with a calm voice and seriousness. Marshal Kong sat behind his desk with a puzzled expression. East Blue? What was his purpose in going there? Sengoku shook his head, not sure. Not only is the purpose unclear, but even the destination has not yet been figured out. After a second pause, he continued, that guy is a threat. And we suspect that he might be trying to divert attention from the rocks. Sengoku frowned instantly. It makes sense. Keep an eye on what Rocks has been doing lately. Yes. After Sengoku saluted, he went out. At this time, East Blue. Brad stood on the watchtower with a telescope, looking into the distance expectantly. With an excited look, he recovered to Caesar on the deck. I saw the island. Caesar smiled slightly, with a look of anticipation in his eyes. But East Blue is really peaceful. The road is calm and calm. Compared with New World, it is completely comfortable. Before Brad finished speaking, he was interrupted by Caesar. Marine is catching up. It's that Zephyr guy. Brad was shocked, as that. The purple-haired Vice Admiral? Caesar nodded. That's the guy. I didn't expect to be caught up by Vice Admiral. It's still the kind of Admiral-level Vice Admiral, not good. He glanced at Brad, the opponent's combat power, and his own combat power. His brows tightened immediately. Not long after discovering Marine had already caught up. Caesar stood on the boat, watching the warships getting closer and closer. Seeing Caesar on the boat, Zephyr looked sharply, and raised his voice. Alexander Caesar, and your companions, Zone Cat Fruit, the demon fruit power in saber-toothed tiger form, Brad. Whatever your purpose in coming to East Blue, it's over. The marine warships were approaching, tall green warships covering their tiny hulls. Zephyr stood on the deck, looking down at Caesar and Brad. Caesar glanced at Brad, who was a little uneasy behind him, and jumped onto the side of the boat with a thud. You go first, I will come later. Brad's pupils shrank slightly, and he shook his head. No, I'm not leaving. Okay. Don't forget that you are demon fruit power. I can't take care of you when the battle starts later. You know, I have a way to escape. Brad glanced at Caesar and nodded silently. In that case, there really is no one to stop Caesar. Bang bang bang. While the two were talking, Marine had already fired in his direction. Kang kang kang. Using armament hockey, Caesar blocks every bullet. Sparks flew all over the body. The Marines suddenly constricted their pupils. The other party will armament hockey. Bullets are completely useless. Boom. When the Marines had nothing to do, Caesar's black fist slammed towards Zephyr. Clang. Two iron-like fists collided fiercely. The scorching impact created eye-catching sparks. Zephyr, Black Arm, is not nicknamed for nothing. This blow did not cause him any damage at all. Landing on the deck of the marine ship, Caesar was instantly surrounded by countless Marines. Surrounded, everyone. Hundreds of sharp knives pointed in his direction, ready to move. Caesar glanced at them impatiently. Don't come in the way. The Marines immediately froze in place. A silent momentum permeated the air. The powerful conqueror's hockey makes people sweat and pupils quake. His fingertips were trembling, and he couldn't even grasp the knife steadily. Bang bang bang. Marine soldiers fell to the ground one after another. Brad here, seeing Caesar in battle, was in full swing and completely crushed Marine. He breathed a sigh of relief and gritted his teeth. His eyes suddenly filled with determination. He's right. I'm here, and I'm only going to be a hindrance. Clenching his fists tightly, Brad adjusted the sail, picked up the paddle and slid it vigorously. The boat immediately drew a long trace on the sea like a rocket. Zephyr clicked. Use Conqueror's Haki to cover your allies? Aren't you a little arrogant? Caesar sneered, but didn't reply. The battle is imminent. Kang kang kang. The sound of gold and iron fighting is endless. The figures of the two flickered quickly, back and forth several times to meet. Black arm crit attack. Zephyr roared. Rumble. The fist wrapped in a rich armed color hit Caesar hard. Caesar didn't dodge or dodge, and met him head-on, with the same armed color wrapped around his fist. Under the powerful attack, the air was compressed and exploded, bursting out sparks. Zephyr frowned, looking at Caesar in surprise. He didn't expect that this brat would have such strength at such a young age. Suddenly, Caesar's figure flashed in front of his eyes. Zephyr frowned, black arm heavy punch, rumble. Caesar backed away quickly, half crouching on the deck. It's fast enough to hide. Then look at this move. Call out. Zephyr teleported behind him, his right arm blackening instantly. Caesar's pupils suddenly constricted. Kang. Two blackened fists collided, and sweat began to flow from Caesar's face. Gritting his teeth tightly, his resisting arms trembled slightly. Zephyr's arm strength is really too strong. The name of the black arm Zephyr really lives up to its name. And the strength of armament Haki. Without a famous sword by his side, relying purely on physical skills and boxing techniques, Caesar felt a little struggling. Kang kang. He took a few steps back suddenly, and immediately joined hands again. Boom. Puff. He was hit again, this time with an arm too late to block, and was hit in the stomach. Spit out a mouthful of blood. Boom. The body and the broken kite fell straight into the sea. Zephyr stood on the deck, watching warily where the ship's railing had broken. He couldn't believe that man could be defeated so easily. He just waited for him to come up, and then made up for a heavy blow. Half an hour. He frowned suddenly, and walked to the edge of the boat, only to see that the sea was very calm. Looking around, the waves are calm. The color of knowledge and knowledge immediately covered this area, but no matter what, he couldn't catch his figure. Did he escape? Dozens of miles overseas. The deep blue sea is magnificent. The breeze blew gently, and there were circles of ripples on the calm sea surface. The seawater reflected the warm sun and emitted phosphorescent waves. Suddenly, a black-haired head emerged from the sea. Ahem. Caesar spat and wiped his cheek. After looking around for a few moments, observation Haki didn't sense the existence of Marine, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Zephyr is really difficult. He sighed softly, feeling quite helpless. Why was he discovered by someone as soon as he arrived in North Blue, and he was caught by a top powerhouse as soon as he arrived in East Blue? The stomach ached from being hit by Zephyr, but luckily he covered it with armament Haki just in time. Otherwise, ordinary people really couldn't bear that blow. At present, he is indeed not Zephyr's opponent. He didn't want to be dragged down by the marine fleets one after another, so he simply took the opportunity to escape. Fortunately, I didn't eat devil fruit, otherwise, the landlubber really didn't know what to do. On the shimmering sea, a figure flew past at low altitude, cutting a long wave. Marine fleet here. Marine, who was stunned by Caesar, has woken up, and the wounded have been carried into the infirmary. The other marine ships are searching for the trace of Caesar. Damn it, did you let him escape like this? How cunning. The searching marines are very unwilling. After finally catching up with the person slipped away from him. Zephyr stepped out of the deck and glanced at the hardworking marines. Go back to the branch base. The marines looked at each other, one of them stepped forward hesitantly, and said, but. Zephyr glanced at him impatiently, the man has already escaped. I don't know his destination. At present, I can only go back to the branch to wait for news. I can't find anyone at all. East Blue is much wider than Grand Line. Yes. Marine responded in unison, standing at attention and saluting. East Blue branch base. Marine here is extremely excited. Is it true that the big man is coming? A certain colonel's direct subordinate swallowed after hearing the news. Look excited and excited. I heard that he was in New World before, why did he come here? Shut up. The man in the colonel's marine uniform yelled. The soldier immediately shut his mouth tightly and tensed his body. Don't ask so much when you shouldn't ask. Yes. After the Marine went out, the colonel frowned deeply, with deep worry and vigilance in his eyes. He bowed his head in thought, touched his chin with his fingers, and said to himself, I didn't expect that even Zephyr Vice Admiral couldn't catch that man. The rookie of the Rocks pirate group who is famous in New World, what is he going to do in East Blue? The situation in the world is chaotic enough. Somewhere in East Blue, a small ship floats on the sea. Brand lay prone on the railing, looking at the ocean in the distance behind him. Caesar was never seen. Frowning tightly, he pressed his hand anxiously to the gap of the deck. Aren't you here yet? What to do? After pondering for a long time, he let out a long sigh. If you use that trick, he should be able to escape. Brad lowered his head, his eyes were full of worry and unwillingness, he clenched his fists tightly, I'm still too weak. Suddenly, there was a shout from ahead. He raised his eyes, his pupils constricted sharply, and he was stunned for half a second. Then there was a big smile on the corner of his mouth, and he raised his hand and waved vigorously, here. Great, you're back. Seeing Caesar approaching rapidly, Brad heaved a sigh of relief. I was anxious while waiting, so I was going to go back and have a look. Caesar was taken aback, then smiled and said, don't you understand my strength? As long as it's not the Golden Lion, who can hunt me down? Keep me from escaping. Hey, that's right. The two said a few words, then headed towards the Goa Kingdom again and continued sailing. The time came 3 days later. Zephyr was impatiently waiting at the East Blue Marine Detachment Base. The colonel wearing the marine hat felt cold sweat dripping from his forehead after feeling the increasingly terrifying aura around Zephyr. Is there no information about the Caesars? The colonel swallowed. Yes, sorry, not yet. After finishing speaking, the taut fingertips on the side trembled unconsciously. Zephyr closed his eyes deeply, and the irritability on his face became more and more serious. After a while, it suddenly disappeared again, and sighed, forget it. At this time, the marine intelligence network of the 4 seas is not as perfect as it was later, and the low efficiency is not unexpected. But there was a gloomy look in his eyes. What is the purpose of that guy? Kingdom of Goa. After landing from the port, the two walked slowly to the town of Goa Kingdom. Brad looked up, his eyes widened unconsciously. What's the matter with that tall city wall? Caesar paused for a second. It's the wall. A high wall that separates the princes and nobles from the common people. Okay. Don't worry about that kind of thing, let's make a disguise first. Maybe there will be Marines in this kingdom. Brad froze for a second, then quickly ran forward and followed his footsteps. The two entered a clothing store casually, and when they came out, they had already made some changes. Brad's otherwise short yellow hair was covered by a tall hat and a fake mustache. The clothes were also changed into the clothes that the townspeople of the Goa Kingdom often wear. Caesar, on the other hand, put on a black gentleman hat to hide his shiny black hair, and changed into a crisp suit. The whole person looks very much like a noble's son in the town, and it doesn't make people think of any connection with pirates at all. Then shall we go directly to that Shimotsky Kozaburo you mentioned? Caesar shook his head. The kingdom of Goa is too big, and it may not be in the kingdom of Goa, it may be the surrounding islands. With just the two of us, we don't know how to find the year of the monkey. The longer the delay, the greater the chance that we will be found by the Marine. He paused for a second, then continued, come with me. The two walked through the streets and alleys of the town and came to a bar that was dilapidated and secret after all. He just used his knowledge to find some clues here. Entering the bar, Caesar looked at the customers in 2s and 3s, and went straight to the boss. After a while, Caesar took Brad, left the bar, and walked out of town. Seeing the abandoned garbage around him, Brad couldn't help but be amazed that it had changed so much from the town. After Caesar and the two entered the waste terminal, they were immediately targeted. But even if Caesar didn't release conquerors, his aura was still impressive, and no one dared to be the first to stand out. In the end, at the garbage terminal, the two found an intelligence organization point. Getting into this sub-point of the intelligence organization, Caesar is no nonsense. He threw a bag of gold coins over, and said indifferently, look for a man named Shimotsky Kozaburo, who may have opened a kendo gym called Yiksen Dojo. Wearing a kimono, there should be a family crest with 2 crossed knives on it. The location is uncertain, either the Kingdom of Goa, or an island around the Kingdom of Goa. The person opposite looked at the gold coin and said, leave it to us. The two left quickly, and Brad was full of doubts. Just as he was about to speak, he bumped into a person in the forest ahead. This is a young man in his 20s, wearing tattered clothes and an old hat on his head. He is aiming at them with an old knife. Although the man was dressed in shabby clothes, he was very energetic, and his eyes stood firmly in front of them. Hey, leave all your treasures behind. Caesar gave him a sideways look and immediately frowned. Who are you? HMPH, Lousy's name is Ganali. Do you want to take revenge? Yes. But now, be sensible and hand over your treasure quickly. Ganali intuitively felt the strength of the person in front of him, which was completely different from the group of people at the waste terminal. But the dream of going to sea still urged him to stop these two people. Gnarly? Caesar was slightly stunned. His powerful memory made him instinctively familiar with the name. Looking at the thick eyebrows on his face again, he reviewed the original work of One Piece. Finally, he found such a person named Ganali from the original book. That was when the three Luffy brothers were almost killed by the giant tiger. The Conqueror's Haki broke out and saved their lives. It is said that he once fought against Roger, and he was also a big pirate who was famous in the sea. Unfortunately, he was a silver medalist. After the defeat, he didn't know whether he was exiled or returned to the kingdom of Goa. Of course, that's something that hasn't happened yet. But there is no doubt that this person will be very powerful in the future, and his expression changed slightly. When the Rock's pirates come to an end, he will form his own pirates. It is a good choice to have such a strong person as the deputy captain. What do you want the treasure for? Caesar asked. Ganali always felt that his eyes were sharp, as if he could see through people. But so what? No one can stop him yearning for freedom and going to sea. Thinking of this, the light in his eyes became more and more determined. Of course it's to get together the funds to buy a pirate ship. Caesar nodded. Well, how about joining me? Brad exclaimed suddenly, looking at Caesar in surprise. At the same time, he remembered that Caesar had said that the Rock's pirates might not be where they belong. That said, is Caesar now planning on leaving? Ignoring the surprised Brad, he tilted his head towards Nolly. How is it? Caesar raised the corners of his lips slightly. His eyes were bound to win. This person will master Conqueror's Haki in the future, which is a rare talent. Although it is not clear why he is still living in the small sea area of East Blue. But he would definitely not miss such a talent. What's more, based on his intuition, this person's talent is absolutely extraordinary. After the Valley of the Gods incident, the Rock's pirates will definitely fall apart. And he will go to sea to form his own strongest pirate group. Partner, it seems that you can find it now. Ganali refused him without hesitation. No. The tone was extremely firm. He stretched out his hand, pointed to himself, and then to the sea. I don't want to be someone else's subordinate. My dream is to set up my own pirate group, and then venture into the sea with my companions. The voice was extremely passionate, and the eyes were extremely firm. Speaking of his dream, his eyes burst into a burning light. Full of hope and longing for the sea. Caesar chuckled. Being my crew member, isn't it also possible to go out to sea? Is it the captain or something? Is it that important? Nolly immediately gave him a blank look. Then will you let me be the captain? Caesar suddenly laughed. Sorry, no, but I still sincerely invite you to come to my ship. Brad on the side was a little angry. Why did you invite this guy? No matter how you look at it, he doesn't look very strong. Although Caesar came here to fool him, the current Caesar has no ships at all. But for this person, it would be too shameless to refuse without even thinking about it. Immediately, he paused, and the image of Nolly speaking just now flashed in his mind. He saw burning hope in the man's eyes. After being dazed for a while, he understood why Caesar invited him to be his companion. Caesar was not depressed because of his rejection, but even more excited. He raised the corners of his lips slightly, and there was a look of appreciation in his eyes. It's this unwavering fighting spirit, and that's good. The moment the corner of the mouth rose, the eyes suddenly opened. Boom. The invisible Conqueror's Haki swirls out of the air, stirring the air like a stream of water. The powerful momentum cleverly avoided Brad's position, enveloping Ganali in it. There was a roar in his mind, and he immediately felt dizzy, and double images appeared in front of his eyes, and everything was spinning. Gritting his teeth tightly, he persisted for half a second before his body swayed to the point of falling down. Sweat dripped from his forehead like it was being washed by rain. He kept panting heavily, not understanding what was going on. Gritting his teeth tightly, anger appeared in his eyes. Seeing this, Caesar raised his eyebrows. He controlled the intensity of Haki, and didn't directly stun people. After all, What he wanted was to suppress, to submit, not just to knock people out and take them away. Seeing that Ganali could hold on, he felt even more happy. How about you? Want to be my companion? Caesar's menacing voice sounded slowly, ringing in Nolly's mind like an alarm bell. The whole head suddenly buzzed. Brad, who was watching the show, also chimed in. Caesar is very strong. You are lucky to have him as the captain. No. Brad was taken aback immediately, his eyes widened, and he looked at him angrily. What? You still haven't agreed. Boom boom boom. An astonishing aura swept from Nolly, colliding with Caesar's conqueror's haki. The air exploded instantly, making a loud noise. The surrounding trees also fell down. Even Brad was a little bit overwhelmed by the influence. However, a man who had trained under Caesar's haki for so many years, he quickly moved away from the collision range of the two conquerors. The gaze that looked at Gnarly was full of shock. That was Conqueror's haki just now. This seemingly ordinary person can actually awaken the Conqueror's haki? Is that a lie? Caesar was also stunned for a second, and then slowly raised the corners of his mouth. Unexpectedly, the opponent's Conqueror's was actually forced out by himself. He was not mistaken, this Ganali was indeed the embryo of a top powerhouse. The inevitability in Caesar's eyes became more apparent. Such a powerful person, of course he would not let it go. Rumble. He strengthened the deterrence of Conqueror's haki, and completely suppressed the opponent's newly awakened Conqueror's haki, which just broke out in a wave. Boom. Nolly was knocked to the ground by Caesar's Conqueror's haki, which already possessed physical influence. He half kneeled on the ground in embarrassment, but the light in his eyes still didn't go out. Suddenly a shadow fell in front of him. Caesar took a step forward, bent slightly to look at him and said, "Let's make a bet." Caesar slowly stretched out a finger. 1 hour. If you can block my attack within an hour, you can leave freely, go to sea or do whatever you want, and I will give you a startup fund to buy a boat. If not. He paused for a second, and his smile deepened, then get on my ship and become the deputy captain of the pirate group I will form in the future. How? Do you dare to bet? Caesar's tone was full of provocation, and he looked at Nolly with contempt. Sure enough. A strong man like Ganali, who is born with the aptitude of a king and is extremely confident in himself, cannot refuse such a battle. Nolly stood up slowly, clenched his fists, looked directly into Caesar's eyes. I promise you. The two looked at each other, and the battle was on the verge of breaking out. Boom. Caesar punched quickly without hesitation. The fierce fist wind made the air rattling. Ganali stretched out his fists to block, and retreated a few meters. Drag out a long trace on the ground. Caesar smiled slightly. Not bad. What about this fist? Boom boom boom. Crack. Crack. Boom. He quickly punched Nolly with 2 heavy hammers. Nolly's figure flashed, and his fist hit the big tree behind him. The part of the tree trunk hit by him was directly smashed by a powerful explosion. With a bang, the big tree collapsed. What? With a roar, Gnarly leapt into the air in front of Caesar in a flash. The fist came straight for his door. Boom. Caesar slightly hooked his lips and stretched out his hand. Then he flicked hard, sending the person flying. Gnarly quickly did a few flips back and landed on the ground safely. Footsteps made a long trail on the ground. Dirt splattered. At this time, Ganali only had simple physical skills. The broken knife he was holding was used to increase deterrence and put on a show. After all, swordsmanship cannot be learned by oneself. But Caesar found that despite his weak fighting skills, the guy was strong. Stronger than Brad. Caesar stood where he was, fists clashing. Excitement appeared in his eyes. In the future, his deputy captain may not be weaker than Pluton Rayleigh. Whoosh. An afterimage flickered in the air. Ganali's pupils shrank sharply, and he couldn't see the opponent's movements at all, and it was even difficult to capture the movements. How strong is this man? There was an unprecedented seriousness in his eyes. As expected, he and those pirates at the waste terminal were people from 2 worlds. The pupils turned rapidly. Boom. Nolly turned and crossed his arms, just in time to block Caesar's fist. But at the same time, he gritted his teeth tightly. Caesar's fist was too powerful. The force of the impact paralyzed his arms somewhat. Caesar narrowed his eyes slightly. No devil fruit abilities, no haki, and no weapons of any kind, that's all. Sure enough, you are really talented. The satisfaction in Caesar's eyes grew stronger. Nolly didn't speak, and quickly punched Caesar, using every punch with all his strength. But every punch missed or was blocked. Brad, who was not far away, widened his eyes in surprise, then gritted his teeth. That guy. He took a few steps back, away from the combat range. Boom. Boom. The crash was louder than before. Brad took a closer look and saw that Garnery was armed. It was a steel pipe picked up from nowhere. A few black lines suddenly appeared on Brad's head. Are you serious about fighting with something like this? But speaking of. Brad rested his hand on his chin, frowning thoughtfully. That guy, is he so strong? At least he's stronger than him. With Ganali, which was barely considered a weapon, his combat strength immediately rose to a higher level, almost on the same level as the Marine Rear Admiral. Boom. With just a light lift of his arm, Caesar immediately blocked Gnarly's attack with all his strength. Show a disdainful smile. Subsequently, boom boom boom. He grabbed the steel pipe in Ganali's hand and lifted him up. He swung back heavily. Gnarly's body crashed into trees and rocks. The sound of cracking and rumbling is endless. But obviously, Ganali will not be easily defeated. On his forehead, a streak of blood sprang out. His right eye was swollen and bruised, breathing heavily. But the light in his eyes became stronger and stronger. I can't fall down here, he gritted his teeth. Hold the steel pipe firmly with both hands. Think back to your dreams. He has also drawn his own pirate flag. Thinking of those, Ganali's fighting spirit instantly recovered. Caesar smiled slightly. Not bad. Being my deputy captain is enough. The voice just fell. Caesar disappeared in place, heading straight for Gnarly. As fast as a rocket. From Brad's vision, he could only see a flashing afterimage. Ah! Gnarly let out a roar and bet everything. Pin all your hopes on this final blow. Boom. Click. Boom. With his bare hands, Caesar broke Gnarly's pole, hitting the facade. Brad opened his mouth slightly. Okay, it's amazing, hockey is useless. Gnarly fell to the ground with a crash and lay on the ground. At this moment, he couldn't move his body. Unexpectedly. Didn't even hold on for an hour. You lost, Gnarly. Gnarly was silent for a long time. I am willing to admit defeat, I am willing to join. Hearing this, Caesar laughed slowly. Welcome to join. Half an hour later. Gnarly's wound was wrapped in bandages. Although it's not a serious wound, it's better to heal it. Brad, who helped Gnarly bandage up, said so. Gnarly conceded the bet, although he was a bit unwilling to be reconciled to the result of the defeat. But it's not bad to sail with someone who is stronger than himself, and he will be the deputy captain in the future. So, where do we go then? Where are your companions? The corners of Brad's mouth twitched slightly. Caesar smiled. It's all here now. The air was silent for half a second. Eh? Gnarly really wanted to punch himself twice. He was willing to do something. It was all a lie. Ha ha ha, don't worry, Brad and I haven't left the Rocks Pirates yet. So strictly speaking, my pirate group has not yet been established. Gnarly's eyes widened immediately. What did you say? The sound was so loud that it shook the birds in the forest. Also, that is to say, are you still someone else's subordinate? His pupils trembled violently, and the man said very strongly, why is he someone else's subordinate? Caesar looked at the unbelievable Gnarly, and laughed twice. Don't worry too much. In New World, there are many people stronger than me. And Rocks was the one that was particularly strong. Brad kept nodding. That's right, that guy can't be called a human at all. But that fellow is quite a nuisance, and if he hadn't threatened to destroy our village, we wouldn't have boarded their boat. One day, Caesar and I will leave them and sail completely free. Caesar nodded. That day is not far away. Afterwards, after listening to the Rocks Pirates that Brad gave him, Gnarly was stunned, unable to recover from the news he had heard. Just one Rocks pirate group has 5 people who have awakened Conqueror's hockey. The remaining few cadres will all have 2-color hockey of armed color and knowledge color. Ordinary crew members are also fully armed, and some of them have knowledge. He, who had just been popularized about hockey knowledge, swallowed hard. Is it really so easy to leave such a powerful pirate group? However, he looked at Caesar. It's better to accept fate. Since they all became this guy's future vice captain, of course it would be, marry a chicken and follow a chicken, marry a dog and follow a dog. He sighed helplessly. Then where are we going next? What are you guys doing on this island? Caesar told him about Shimotsuki Kosaburo. Gnarly scratched his head. Shimotsuki Kosaburo. Haven't heard of it. But are you a sword wielder? But why are you so good at physical skills? Caesar chuckled. I'm a grandmaster for both swordsmanship and physique. Garnery was shocked again. Sure enough, This guy is a pervert strong person. The three of them used the shore where the ship was parked as a base to move in the kingdom of Goa. Ask around quietly or search for traces of Shimotsuki Kozaburo. Armament hockey can be obtained through cultivation. I see your situation, it should be almost. Along the way, he gave Ganali a variety of in-depth knowledge about hockey and helped him guide armament hockey. In order to help Nali lead out, Caesar suppressed his strength to fight against him. Brad watched from the side, slowly raising the corners of his mouth, feeling a little nostalgic. That's what Caesar taught him before. Boom. Boom. With simple explanations and attacks, Ganali finally guided armament hockey out. Successful, it's amazing, Ganali, Brad yelled excitedly. Caesar withdrew his fist, and there was a little satisfaction in his eyes. Not bad. Ganali looked at his right fist excitedly, with excitement in his eyes. He could feel that armament hockey, who only wrapped his fist, seemed to increase his attack and defense a bit. Really. It worked. Caesar stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. Practice more in the future and master it. Also Conqueror's hockey, also pay attention to practice control. Nali looked up at him and Brad nodded sharply. Ah, I see. 3 days later. They have already traveled to every corner of the Goa kingdom, and even explored the territory of the royal palace and nobles, but there has been no progress. Is that Shimotsuki Kozaburo you're talking about real? Both Brad and Nali were feeling a little frustrated. There is no news at all. Suddenly, Caesar frowned. There was a look of vigilance in the eyes of the two of them. It's us. Seeing someone coming, Caesar let go of his fist. Any news? The visitor nodded. There is indeed news about Shimotsuki Kozaburo. Brad and Nali looked at each other, both a little excited. Caesar was also a little happy. Let's hear it. The person in charge of sending the message from the intelligence organization spoke slowly. 8 or 9 years ago, the kingdom of Goa docked a ship from the Grand Line, and among the people who disembarked from the ship was a man in a samurai kimono. There are indeed marks of 2 knives on his clothes, and his name is Kozaburo. There was a little excitement in Caesar's eyes. It seemed that he was right. Then where did he go and where is he now? The man didn't continue to speak, but just stretched out his hand towards him with a smirk, and twisted his thumb and index finger. The meaning was obvious. The rest of the money. Caesar narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at him for a long time. The person who looked directly was sweating profusely, his heart was beating like a drum, and his jaw was trembling with fright. Damn it, you still want to cheat this person, but he is such a powerful person? After a while, Caesar saw that he could hardly bear to be met and fell to his knees, sneered, and took out another bag of gold coins for him. Don't tell the outside world that I have inquired about this person, that's all, let's continue. The man breathed a sigh of relief immediately. Yes, yes. Caesar chuckled and lifted his chin towards him. He wasn't afraid that this person would trick him. He believed that after deterring the other party just now, the other party would not dare. After being frightened, the man's attitude immediately became very humble. It's like this. We found out that the man went to a small island in the southeast of the kingdom after traveling in the kingdom of Goa. This is the map. Look, here it is. He took out a map of Goa kingdom and pointed to a small island on it. There are dozens of large and small islands around the kingdom of Goa. This one is just a very inconspicuous village, and it is a certain distance from the kingdom of Goa. Caesar nodded, motioning for him to continue. According to the news, this Shimotsuki Kozaburo did indeed open a dojo on that island to teach swordsmanship, called Ishin. He also has a 7 or 8-year-old son who has settled down completely, and that small village gradually prospered because of the opening of Yishin dojo, and now it's called Shimotsuki village. Brad breathed a sigh of relief. We have found this guy, but it's really hard to find. Caesar also nodded. Yes. Eyebrows pondered. Since it is Shimotsuki village, it can't be wrong. After a while, the three came to the shore where the boat was docked. Brad climbed onto the boat full of momentum. Let's go. Well, I will leave the job of sailing to you, Nali. The veins on Ganali's forehead popped out instantly, and he roared ferociously. I'm the vice captain, not the helmsman. Caesar looked at Ganali. You are familiar with this place, of course it would be better for you to drive it. Nali was stunned for a second before realizing that this guy was tactfully letting him take the helm. Lamented by the unreliability of his 2 companions, he still tried his best to assume the position of helmsman. Although the boat was not very big, it was spacious and comfortable enough for the 3 of them to use with ease. Taking a boat, the 3 of them headed to the small island where the Shimotsuki village is located. Clap clap. Clap clap. The sound of rhythmic fencing kept ringing. In the Yixin dojo, dozens of children wearing dojo training uniforms swung their swords vigorously, fighting 2 by 2, all of them sweating from their foreheads and panting. Shimotsuki Kozaburo stepped forward, let the disciples rest, and formed a circle. Koshiro was also sitting among them, looking up at his father, his eyes full of admiration, and standing opposite him. The way of the sword is to test the inner strength. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his head and looked outside the sword path. The smile on the corner of his mouth froze for a moment. "What's wrong, teacher?" Seeing this, the disciples below shouted worriedly. Kosaburo frowned tightly, worry and fear appeared in his eyes. Why? Would there be a strange strong man of this level approaching? Moreover, the purpose is clear, it is aimed at Shimotsuki village, and even Yixin dojo. Could it be? I don't know what to think of, his face is not very good looking. Boom boom boom. Rhythmic footsteps sounded, and all the people in Yixin dojo looked at the place where the sound came from. A few drops of cold sweat dripped down Kosaburo's face, and he tightly grasped the wooden sword next to him. His whole body was like a tight string, ready to explode at the touch of a button. After a while, the owner of the footsteps revealed his true face. Kosaburo looked at the visitor, with a trace of doubt in his eyes. It was an unfamiliar face, and he was not from Wano-kuni. But he didn't let his guard down. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Caesar slowly brought up a smile. He was sure the moment he saw this person. This person was Shimotsuki Kozaburo. It's just a wooden sword, but the sharpness unique to swordsmen is obvious. The three stepped into the dojo. Caesar said, "You are Mr. Shimotsuki Kozaburo. I came to you, and I want you to help me make a knife that is suitable for me."